So the TBS radio interview with Kubo has finally come into fruition, like I told you it would. If you haven't read or watched my editor-in-chief interview, go check that out. But also, yeah, let's get into this. We learned some stuff. Of course, we didn't, and we did learn some stuff. I mean, there was some stuff that has been regurgitated in past interviews. So we're gonna get into the nitty-gritties and talk about all the stuff that is relevant the most. And this is only part one, as at the end of the interview, of Kubo's interview, it said that Kubo was holding a lot of stuff back, whether it would be in these questions or just stuff in general, but whether they're joking or not, and I quotation that because again, I can't get context out of text, so to say, or that much emotion, because again, the translators may not understand purely enough on the context of what it was said, whether it's said in a joking way or not. So I'll just go with what I think and what I believe. But next interview is going to be dwelling on more of the darker sides of Kubo and the more darker, deeper questions. So who knows exactly what that means? But again, what is it? Next Saturday, expect to see some spicy stuff. Hopefully. Who knows? And hopefully I'll get to that on day one instead of like taking a day later. So yeah, let's begin, shall we? We hear that Kubo actually lives in Roppongi Hills, which is something I've talked about in the past before. He is 40, and it is surprising for a 40-year-old Japanese man to be living in Roppongi Hills because it's like the Beverly Hills of Hollywood. It is really fucking expensive, and not many people get to live there. We have people like Toriyama who live in Roppongi Hills because they can afford it, and it is a very expensive place. So the fact that Kubo lived there 10 years ago means that like even like his manga just really was impactful enough for him to have a lot of money to buy a place in Roppongi Hills. Basically, just goes to show how successful he was at the very early stages of Bleach for him to move there. So yeah, that's just fantastic. Within like the first 7 years of Bleach being around, it's just fantastic. You know, halfway through the fucking like Arrancar stuff, was it? Like towards the end of Arrancar stuff, like he was like, yeah, I'm gonna move into Roppongi Hills. Okay, fair play to him. We also find out that, you know, he lives happily with his wife, who's also 37, which is cool because it wasn't something I touched upon, but at the interview in, I guess, a school, and it was on a Chinese newspaper, he didn't really mention much of his wife. Instead, he mentioned something about his kid, and there was a little bit, just a tiny bit of a rumor that he might have been divorced, but it's glad to know that he's with his wife. She's 37. She wanted to come to the interview, but unfortunately, she was doing other stuff, and yeah, lives in Roppongi Hills. There you go. There's some info for you. So he got to walk into the tower of which the interview took place, which is ironic because I've actually been in that tower when I went to go to Japan, and I've been in that tower. I've been in that same building. It's fucking insane. Like, it's a really tall building. Like, it's got many studios in there, so pretty awesome, to be honest. Roppongi Tower, I think, is something like that. So yeah, dope. Again, I'm gonna tell you just the relevant stuff. I mean, we could delve into stuff that we talked about in the past, such as like his high school experience and his middle school experience, and that he never really drew until high school, and that you know, he was planning on going to manga or drawing schools before he went into the whole manga game. So it was pretty cool, the fact that somebody had hit him up by like a Jump editor to say, hey, come do a one shot, come do some work with us, and it kind of just spiraled from there. And his parents weren't like apprehensive about it, and they weren't like, oh yeah, go do it, but they wasn't discouraging about it either. They let him kind of just mellow out and do his own thing, and things just kind of just worked out. We then get into editors a little bit, where he talks about kind of where he had one editor, his very first editor, which didn't really bother him that much, and any kind of advice that he gave him he took on board, but he chose whether to take it or not. He can't really remember that much of it, simply because, well, he had too much of a good time, I guess, having that editor, so he doesn't have many memories of like them guys clashing or anything like that. So that's in a way all good. And he also says that he chose being a mangaka because he can do a lot of his own work. Admittedly, he does have assistants, but he spends very short time with his assistants because he mainly likes to do a lot of the things on his own, which I think is fantastic. I mean, it's kind of like the Togashi mentality, I guess you could say, but the fact that like this guy went literally 6 days a week. I think he only took like the Friday off or like the Tuesday off or something like that, and like he'd do these chapters every single day. And I feel like, you know, especially without, I wouldn't say without assistance, but with minimalistic assistant input or, you know, stuff like that, I think is fantastic for him to put all that kind of him work into it. And he says, like, you know, obviously he was that person that would eat alone in the cafeteria because he just likes being by himself. He doesn't like being told what to do, and he doesn't like kind of anything that he's not in control of. such as like the anime, for example, which we'll get onto a little bit later on. Kubo debuted in a special issue of Shonen Jump where the ranking preferred veteran artists over newbies, which is obviously quite natural, because if you're already known, you're gonna wanna, you know, you're gonna wanna vote for the person you know, and you have a little bit of favoritism towards. I mean, it's natural. This was back in 1996. Veterans would take the top spots while they'd rank newbies after that. This was the issue where Oda debuted Romance Dawn, which came in 3rd place, while Kubo's came in 4th with his one-shot. This is very, very important because many people are going to take this in many different ways, shapes and forms, and I want to get this absolutely fucking right here. Because yeah, I mean, let's be honest, me as a person, I do want to see a little bit of drama because I find it fucking funny, because obviously you can't have a corporation where all the mangakas are all happy-go-lucky with each other. Like, who hasn't seen many interviews where mangaka would always say they're in competition with each other, they're trying to beat everyone out the fucking rankings and all that stuff? Like, it's a bloodbath, you know. We've seen fucking interviews with this shit. Like, Nakano literally did like an interview not long ago with the exact same radio show. But what I mean by all of this is that Kubo says at this point he'd started to dislike Oda. Now, I wanna say there's 3 translations. There's one on a forum where it does a bullet point and it says that's where Kubo started to hate Oda. There's this one, which he's done the previous TBS interviews before, and he's listening and he's getting the emotion of how they're saying it. So there's that one, and then there's my buddy that, like, obviously I hit up on Facebook, who can also speak Japanese, and he also says that he's not quite sure, but it would make sense that Kubo and Oda don't exactly get along like that. So you can take this as you will, right? You can only get context off text, right? But from what I've been told through the emotion and the hearing of tone of voice is that the translators themselves aren't quite sure if this is a joke or not, right? And if it isn't a joke, if Kubo says this is where he started to dislike him, one, you can dislike someone, I guess, because, like, you're envious, you know, this motherfucker just beat you, like, oh, fuck you, Oda, you know, just, it could be a jokey way, right? It could be. And it's very petty. Like, you can't have a 20, year fucking grudge over, like, a fucking one-shot thing. Like, this is zombie powder time. Like, this wasn't fucking like Bleach time. This was zombie powder. So the fact that, like, Kubo lost this, I think this was before, or it probably was zombie powder, I'm not quite sure, but, like, either way, Kubo's a little bit salty, you know. If you've been angry for 20+ years, that's a little bit petty. And I disagree with Oda, not Oda, I disagree with Kubo a lot. Like, dude, chill the fuck out. Like, you expect this. Come on, like, unless, I don't think Oda was a newbie back then. I think he would have been classed as a known artist. I mean, surely he did one-shots. Yeah, he did Wanted, I think. Yeah, was that the one-shot of one? No, that was Romance Dawn. So he's done some before. So if this was Kubo's first time, you did fucking well, you know. Don't fucking, like, get upset about it, you know. It is petty. And I agree. Kubo, that is a little bit sad of you to do that. And I won't fucking damage control you for that. But at the same time, I do feel like Kubo is that sort of person. Again, this is all, and I can't express this enough, personal opinion, just from reading past interviews, just how he feels with Jump, all that stuff, just from my own mindset of how I think things are. I think Oda and Kubo didn't get quite along because I didn't think Kubo respected the kind of favoritism later on down the road of, like, One Piece, of how big it got. And if he did, and if he did technically get a little bit envious or jealous or frustrated that Oda beat him in a one-shot competition magazine, and you know, Oda was always being top of the rankings and top in Shonen Jump's mind, I think he was, if he can get, you know, salty or envious over being beaten in a one-shot, of course he's going to be envious and salty over the fact that he keeps beating everyone else in Shonen Jump. So again, like, it's not unbelievable, but I feel like there's so much more context that is needed with that. So I'm, again, just tell me your guys' thoughts. I'm not, again, I generally think that he means it. I generally think that he doesn't like him, whether that's due to his own personality or whatever, but, like, I've never seen Kubo get invited to one of Oda's house parties. Yeah, he said thank you. Like, come on, who isn't gonna say congratulations to Kubo after each chapter when every single mangaka fucking said it? If you wasn't saying congrats to Kubo, you were looking like the bad guy. Like, everybody in Shonen Jump congratulated him. If Oda didn't, then it would have been like, oh, well, Oda, what the fuck, you're a dickhead, you know? But yeah, like, I hardly see any collaborations with him and Oda. Oda didn't do anything for his data books. I've only seen Kubo do one illustration for one of Oda's specials in the past. So it is very confusing. I don't see them two interacting at all. I know Kishimoto and Kubo did. They went to see fucking Frozen together at the cinema. So again, take it as you will. I'm not saying it's a fact. Take this context as you will. So I just leave it off at there. Things could change in the next interview. We could learn some more stuff, but who knows? For the time being, Kubo doesn't like Oda. Jokey way or not, who knows? Now I'm assuming throughout this time what this interview is saying as well is that Jump made Kubo do a lot of one-shots. I'm assuming because they really liked his kind of style and artwork and kind of that they could see the potential they had. So they gave him a lot of you know, one-shots to do, and they kept forcing him to hand one in every single week. So like out of spite, he even admitted that he'd like send it off at literally the last minute just to be a cunt about it, I guess you could say. And then we go on to even further where it's like Shonen Jump gave him assistants where they were technically older than him, and he didn't like that because they didn't take on his preference of writing or art style, and they kept changing stuff, and he kept then changing it back right after just the last minute before, you know, he'd be like, yeah, that's good, and then like behind their back he'd just change it. And then apparently because of this, it wasn't really a pleasant work environment for him because of just a clash of like preference and ideals, so to say. Torishima returns, and he told Kubo during his one-shot period that his manga is bad, and gave him a copy of Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star. I was going to say the Japanese now, I was like, I'm not going to fuck that up. And then told him to read it and draw manga like this. Now, the way he makes it sound, apparently within the interview, his tone of voice makes it sound like he fucking got a bunch of fucking Dragon Ball volumes, slammed it on the table and said, fucking do this, right? But I would imagine it was more like, you know, the real kind of advice was like, take these series into consideration, see what these guys do well, and then try and replicate that same kind of success, is what I feel like he was going with. I don't think he was like, do the Dragon Ball story, or do a Fist of North Star story, like, we want another one of this. I think he was like, learn from what they do good that is popular and try and replicate that. But like, I would take that as offensive as well. Like, your shit's bad. He slams a One Piece thing on the desk and is like, do that. And I'm like, no, fuck you, I want to do my own thing. I don't want to fucking carbon copy shit, which is good. But like, Kubo didn't actually go back and read it because he was like, these shows are popular, I don't have to read it to know how good these stories are, or to know what it's about. Like, everybody, when something's so popular, you get the idea. But I just love how Kubo actually said in the interview that he was thinking at the time, screw you, I'm not gonna do that. That's so like rebellious of Kubo. Like, I just love his attitude towards everything. It's like, fam, I'm just gonna do my own thing, fuck you. Like, now let's talk a little bit more about Bleach, because apparently through the time of Zombie Powder and Bleach's ending is that the editors really wanted to get Kubo back on his feet. They really wanted him to get back into the mold of things. And what they mean by that is the fact that they didn't want Kubo to be a forgotten mangaka. While he's still known and people still have his name in their head, it would only make sense, in their eyes anyway, for them to kind of, you know, do another series with his name on it. Like, everyone kind of has an idea of what his style is and kind of him as a person, so they're like, oh, we don't want people to forget you, so the more we get your fucking next work out, people are gonna be like, oh, I know that guy, he just did Zombie Powder and he just finished, so like, I want to check out his next work. I get that idea, but Kubo's like, you know, he regrets not having more time to kind of play with it a little bit, to play with some ideas, and he felt kind of rushed to the fact of getting into Bleach, which again seems like, as this interview goes on, actually a happy mistake, because apparently a lot of the ideas that he had within his notebook, a lot of drawings and a lot of things he jotted down just in his head over time, literally was put towards the one shot, which went towards being Bleach itself. So it was a little bit of a happy mistake, but like, again, these were his ideas that he just jotted down on a notebook at the time. So that's that. I mean, and I would imagine he's talking about where like Rukia had like a siphon, Ichigo was like really nerdy with glasses kind of feel. So that was like, it's an interesting concept of how that kind of happened. But yeah, like, I would have been interested to see what Kubo would have done if he had that little bit more time to kind of plan things out and work things out in his head. But like, the fact that he went from Zombie Powder to Bleach very quickly, especially after his kind of depression went in. Just goes to show that Kubo he's a very talented person. It just seems like all the stacks are kind of against him sometimes. So it's a shame sometimes that Kubo just couldn't get what he fucking wanted to a certain degree. Again, like he was given a lot of slack, but at the same time he wasn't in some situations. So it is a shame. He probably got given more than most, to be honest, especially in this day and age. But who knows? That's just from assumption. So let's talk about Bleach's ending, and I'm not talking about the whole thing of what people want to know. We're actually talking about the last chapter. The last chapter that we're talking about, the finalized 686. That chapter, only that chapter. Everything else before that's kind of irrelevant. Let's talk about that chapter in particular. Yes, the ending was something he thought of from the start. He'd always wanted to end Bleach with the scenario where the new generation takes over for the old guard. We could have had a fucking Kazui fucking spin-off. Fuck. Oh, fuck. We could still get it though, who knows? And that the entire story was building links from the start to the eventual end. So the last chapter of the story is the plot. There you go, Bleach has a plot. It was working towards something, and do you know what? Kubo knew what he was working towards. It was a happy family for Orihime and Ichigo. Because if you don't know, I did an Orihime Dark Past Explained video, which is like going to be somewhere on the recommended shit somewhere. And I also did a Ichigo video too about like the plot of Bleach, and we talk about Ichigo's backstory and all that stuff. So it's nice that the end of the series, the end of the actual chapter, was basically two tragic people having tragic family lives have one big happy family at the end of it. It's a sweet story. It's adorable. Anyway, all cringiness and all that stuff. No, honestly, I think that's really cool. The fact that you had two characters who had kind of tragic backstories to do with their family end up having a really nice happy family towards the end of its story. So yeah, I think that's a really cool idea and a really cool mindset, because we had a lot of development, I personally think. But anyway, to get back onto the interview. So he just sort of expanded things as necessary just in case the series ever got cancelled. He also confirms that sometimes he'd sort of let the series glide along on autopilot, because he does say that you can serialize a manga like that without thinking at all. This is the whole consensus of a mangaka drawing without having to think about it. It's like you're on autopilot. You have a muscle memory on how to draw a character. Loads of mangaka do this. Sometimes when they're in a bind or they know where they're going, they can just kind of just freelance do it without having to think much about it at all. And it's very stressful even to have that as a job, to be able to just draw a character without having to think about it. It's just, you know, once you get that experience, you can just generally do that, and you don't have to put that much effort in as much as like always worrying about how to draw a character or anything like that, because you just that naturally entwined to do it. And that's how I perceive what he's talking about here. But when we talk about expanding things just necessarily, is that it seems like Kubo's basically saying, I didn't want to add in things generally over time or over complicate things just in case the story got ended to the point where I wouldn't be able to explain those things, which ironically enough, in the 1,000 Year Blood War arc where everything was coming together, was the part that shouldn't have been cancelled or ended as it did, ironically enough. So I could see it, like him being able to end it very quickly within the Soul Society arc. I could see him being able to end it very quickly in the Fullbring arc. I could see him ending it very quickly within the Heiko Mundo arc. Not in the 1,000 Year Blood War arc. That was an arc which you was in too deep for you to even fix. Like I think he knew that like he was comfortable with not getting cancelled. That's why he was doing all these big revelations. But I guess that's where it kind of took him maybe by surprise, of the fact that, oh shit, I'm ill as fuck. I can't carry on, and I've done all these questions now. Fuck. So yeah, again, I'll carry on with the interview. Well, Kubo was of course happy with Bleach's anime that was announced. His initial reaction was, why did it take so long? To be fair, if you're in a magazine and everybody around you's got an anime that started a little bit after you kind of got to question, where's mine? Where's mine? I wonder how that went down. I wonder why that took so long, to be honest. But yeah. Generally speaking, Jump manga get adaptations usually a year and a half or 2 years after they start. Bleach took 3. As for the anime, Kubo wasn't thrilled with the changes they made to his script, to the point where it gave him stomach aches. So he essentially demanded to be sent scripts so he could correct them, as his name is on the product and he wants to reflect on his work. This sounds very familiar to Bleach Movie 4, where he actually wrote like an apology and he said that this isn't my work and my name's on it, even though like I didn't agree with many of the stuff. So like Kubo is very, very passionate about what his name gets put on, and is very passionate about like just his series, and I think that's a fantastic mindset to have, and probably that's why the Bleach anime was so good, and maybe that's why the fillers were actually really good too. So he got really mad with some things, but there was no specifics. I really what those things were they changed or were they left in? That's the interesting thing about that. But again, as I just said, I'm really glad that he got really involved with the anime, and it just goes to show that, to me anyway, my personal opinion is that there's 2 people that can get an anime Bleach back, and that's Shueisha and that's Kubo, because that's factual. And it seems to me that Kubo does want an anime again. So it's all about Shueisha, and I generally do think Shueisha want to as well. So again, as we talk about further on about why Bleach ended, I think it's really to do with just waiting until Kubo's health's good, and maybe until the light novels are done, and then we might be able to hear something after the live action movie. But let's proceed. Bleach was running for 15 years, but Kubo never felt pressured or anything, as he had more or decided on how things would go. He had planned for the next week while writing the current week's chapter, and that's how he kept things moving. Kubo is one who is precise with how he spends his time, so he will be able to be on a strict schedule, but that was once his health declined. He's the type of person to do their summer homework at the start of vacation to get it out the way. He had about 6 to 7 editors while during Bleach's 15-year run, while he's not sure about the numbers since they come and go so frequently. Which in a way could explain obviously Kubo's aggression or not getting along with certain editors throughout the series, which we heard about the Jump Ryu interview, about like how he just didn't get along with some of them, he getting fights with some of them as well. That could also come into play with Bleach's kind of quality to a certain degree, or some things may be slow paced than others because of just the amount of different like editors. And again, we don't know each and every one of them, but I would assume like there was some tensions between both of them, and I can see that definitely affecting the story later on in the series, which is a shame because I'm assuming a lot of editors wanted to get in right after Soul Society. So I imagine the Heiko Mundo, and I can see Heiko Mundo had so many different levels of pacing, it was pretty intense, but yeah, I can believe that. When Bleach ended, his initial reaction was basically, I'm so tired. He decided that he'd draw Bleach to his desired conclusion. So even though there were times where he wanted to end the series prematurely, he decided, not the editorial staff, that he would draw Bleach to its desired conclusion. So even though there were times where he'd want to end the series prematurely due to his decline in health, he kept going in order to reach the end he was satisfied with. Now, this is very important. What he means by this statement, he decided, not the editorial staff, that he'd draw Bleach to his desired conclusion, is that we see things such as Kishimoto, for example, where he wanted to end it with Madara, but obviously due to the editorial staff influence, he carried on with Kaguya, and then obviously did, you know, the whole Boruto chapter. Then we also go on to Assassination Classroom, where they tried to pressure him to carry on for longer than he needed to. So I think in this concept that he was talking about, like, he wanted this conclusion and he was sticking with this conclusion. He wasn't going to change it just out of like pressure or influence. So that's what he meant by editorial staff. He wasn't going to listen to them. He was going to do the conclusion the way he saw fit. But this is where the sad thing comes in. So even though there were times where he'd want to end the series prematurely due to his decline in health, he kept going in order to reach the end he was satisfied with. And this is what I mean by the title, where this is the reason why Bleach ended. Even though he knew his health was declining, he kept pushing. And what happens when you keep pushing, you're basically pushing yourself harder to the edge, where, like, say if you're sick, for example, right, you're not giving yourself time to recover. So he kept going. He tried to get past that sickness to the point where it literally damaged him for a very long time. This guy, again, I'll remind you, was working with a torn ligament for at least a fucking year, until he had an MRI scan where he was like, oh shit, I've got a torn fucking ligament. That's insane. The guy pushed to his literal boundary, to the point where he must have been drawing a chapter one day and thought, like his arm must have froze or his body must have stopped and thought, I can't do this anymore. This is where I've got to stop. I can't push myself any further. Like, it's got to end here. And like, obviously I agree that Shonen Jump should have either give him the breaks that they give Oda, or they should have gave him like a year off, just like they do fucking Togashi all the time. It is a shame in that aspect, and I really wish that that was the overall kind of decision at the end of it. And I do blame Shonen Jump for that, and I do blame Kubo for kind of being ignorant to his own ability or his own body. But you know, the mangaka game is a tough one, and it seemed like Bleach ended just because he simply couldn't push anymore. So once he made that decision that he needs to end this, that's where the rushing came. And we have the whole census of like, you know, magazine covers get planned 5 weeks in advance. You know, so like every cover you see on Shonen Jump magazine gets you know, decided in 5 weeks in advance, and series that get cancelled have 2 weeks to wrap up. So it just kind of makes sense that yes, it does seem like that Kubo gave that date and said, yeah, that this is ending in 5 weeks or 6 weeks or 10 weeks time, and then he was able to just say, I need to finish this up, and then just kind of get that rest. So it seems like at the end of the day, it was health. We can blame Shonen Jump, we can blame Kubo. You know, at the end of the day, it's just an unfortunate thing, and this is Shonen Jump the problem here? Will we see Kubo come back? We need to wait on his health. We need to just hopefully, fingers crossed, that his health gets better, so then he can possibly go and work with Period like he did with his anime in the past and kind of fix up the way he wanted to. But the fact that he's saying is like he wanted to end the series prematurely before because of just his health goes to say that this is probably a premature ending to his scenes, as he wanted it to go on for 10 more years. Even the fucking comic strip that he did literally after Bleach ended said that like he was stressing out because of his health, and the fact that he promised that in interviews that he was going to go on for 10 more years. So you know, it is unfortunate. This isn't the way he wanted it to go, but he was satisfied enough to end the series like that to the best of his ability by the seams of it. So that's frustrating to know that it was something that really no one realistically could help in a way. Like there's no defined well, there is an answer now, it's his health. Like you know, hopefully that can fix. And I mean, by looking at these pictures in the TBS interview, he's not looking that great, especially when he went to the Lucaran Comics and he had to decline to go to that because of his health. Doesn't really seem like it's going good so far. All we can do is just wait and hope for the best and fingers crossed and all that jazz. But yeah, who knows what can happen next year, what Shueisha's got planned and all that stuff. Maybe in 2018 he's gonna feeling fresh and all that stuff. But yeah, tell me, you guys, of course, his thoughts on that. But to end this video off, just like in the Jump Giga volume, which I didn't fully translate because we only got a little bit of a translation, we didn't get the full translation. Within that translation that I didn't talk about in the video is that, will Kubo be doing another work? And the answer is to that is no. Kubo doesn't have any works in the basket yet. He doesn't have any interest to. Neither did the Assassination Classroom guy, if you guys are interested, but like that's irrelevant. But yeah, Kubo is not planning to do any series at the moment, and that really just goes to tell me that it seems to me that it's possible that he's not done with Bleach yet. He clearly isn't done with Bleach. He loves Bleach, and if you follow him, you guys know that, you know. Anyways, there wouldn't be some more promotion with the light novels and the live action movie and whatnot. I do think, you know, he was getting involved with the live action movie kind of recording stage, so like he's really into it. He still wants to do things with Bleach, and it seems to me that like he's not going to move on until he's satisfied. So can we see an anime? Probably. I think hopefully it gets addressed in the next interview. But I am going to leave it off with that. Tell me you guys' thoughts, of course, in the comment section down below what you think of this interview. Can you not wait until part 2 comes in? Hopefully they weren't joking by saying we'll go deeper into the darker questions, because I think that's going to be really interesting. But yeah, I can't wait to see. Because it seems like we got a lot of the unnecessaries out the way, like the stuff we already knew. Like, I feel like the questions that we're going to get now are actually going to be spicy ones, especially if they're as long as this one. So, we're going to catch you motherfuckers out. You guys, of course, have this fun day. Be handsome as always, people. Peace out. And don't forget to click that subscribe button for the next interview. So, yeah, peace.